Hi guys, it's Sophie. So today I'm going to do another currently reading and haul video. My January wrap up will be coming really soon. I'm probably going to film that one tomorrow, but just haven't had a chance yet. Had a super busy weekend last weekend and then ended up getting ill and I spent like 5 days in bed. So this is the first time I felt up to filming, and I'll just do the shorter one first. You've got something out there from me. So currently I'm reading Walden still, by Henry David Thoreau. I haven't got much further really than I had last week. I just haven't really felt like picking this one up, but I think I will read another chapter. As I said, I'm reading it sort of in pieces, so I think I'll just read another chapter at some point this week, and this will probably stay on these currently reading videos for a little bit. And I also am currently reading Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. I think this is probably the most beautiful book that I own. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I'm not all that far into this one yet. I only started it last night and yeah, I think I'm like 3 chapters in. But it's interesting so far and quite different to The Waves, which I actually quite like. I think I prefer the writing style in To the Lighthouse so far. But I'll let you know what I think as I go through, because obviously it's pretty early days. But it's really interesting so far. Let me know without spoilers if you liked it down below. And then I also picked up a few books this month. I actually got these ones online. Normally I shop in bookshops, but I did actually go against the grain and go online this time. I've read one of them already, so I'll show you that one first. So the first one is Islam and the Future of Tolerance by Sam Harris and Maajid Nawaz. Nawaz? Yeah, let me know how to say it if you want. Really interesting. This one is a sort of conversation between 2 individuals, one of which is Sam Harris, who's an atheist and sort of very sort of pro-secularism in society, and the other one, Maajid Nawaz, is a Muslim who is also sort of believes in secular ideas but is very strong in his faith. And they're talking about Islam and about the sort of problems that the world stage is seeing with Islam at the current times, or with people who identify with Islam as their main religion, and talking about how to separate or sort of modify the connection of that religion to the violence that we're seeing, and what that really means for people in those countries and for people who do identify as Muslims. Really interesting book. I found it super interesting. It really helped me to understand a lot more about what we do here on the news, and it was, I personally find it amazing to have a real insider's insight. Nawaz was a radical extremist when he was younger, and sort of joined these groups, joined these terror groups really, and has since removed himself from that violence. So he speaks really openly and really informatively about those matters. So that was really interesting. He has another book called Radical that I think I'm going to pick up and might be of interest if you are sort of interested in reading about what that journey looked like. And then the next one is a poetry collection that I've heard a few people on BookTube sort of talk about, and it's The Trees by Christie. I think it's a gorgeous book, and it's only a very little one, and the poems themselves are quite small too. I haven't gone and read any of these yet, but they do seem quite interesting, sort of just flicking through them, just seeing the language use. But I might sit down and read this one this afternoon. And then next I have another poetry collection, and that is Citizen by Claudia, Rankine, and I know this one has had a lot of sort of critical acclaim. I think it won the National Book Award for Poetry. And it's sort of a conversation on race and on sort of violence against minority groups in the United States. So it sounded really up my alley. I'm always interested in sort of reading about that and understanding that a lot more, and understanding what America's issues with race, sort of what they stem from, and seeing how I can make sure that I'm not mirroring anything that might potentially have impact on communities like that. I know that a lot of people who may be sort of sexist or racist but not even know that what they're saying might be construed as such, and I think it's really important just to be aware of what your impact is on other people. So really interested to read this one. Not seen all that many people talking about it, but I've seen a bit of hype on Goodreads, so I'll let you know what I think of this one, and hopefully it's good. I've only heard good things about this one, and the critics would seem to agree. And then the next one I have is another non-fiction, and it is One Child by Mei Fong, and it's about China's experiment with the one-child policy, which we learnt about in school, so I do know a little bit about it, but only what you learn in secondary school, but have always found it quite an interesting sort of topic, wondering what the reality looks like, and obviously the sort of horrendous side effects that came from this policy, and who's accepted as a child and who wasn't, and what we would do with unwanted children. So it should be very interesting, and I just think it would be one that I'm actually genuinely really interested in, and I'm trying to read more non-fiction. You might have noticed that I'm hauling more non-fiction and sort of talking about more non-fiction. I think this is one of the things I want to try and do this year, so just picking up books every now and again that are of a topic that is of particular interest to me, and then seeing if I can branch out a little bit into areas I don't know anything about. And then the last one I have, I pretty much picked up because it had so much hype on Instagram, and I just couldn't resist, and that is Manhattan Mayhem by Mary Higgins Clark. The book itself is really pretty, which I think is why it's had so much hype. So like the cover is the sort of Manhattan area, and all the sort of street maps, and it's a collection of short stories about sort of mystery in New York, and they're all set in sort of quite iconic locations, and they have sort of nice pictures of the city as well as you go along, and a little map that tells you just about where the story is taking place. So what I've been doing with this book, because I've actually read the first 2 stories but haven't got any further, is after I read the story I've been going on Google Earth and going to location and having a little explore vicariously through the internet, and understanding a bit more about what the city looks like today, and getting a sense of the location. So that's been really fun because they're set in real life locations and they're clearly marked. You can do that, and that's been, you know, a really nice part of reading that story. If you have books you can do that with, I'd recommend giving it a go. So before I go today, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my reading going forward, because I just touched on the non-fiction element, and I just wanted to sort of round that off a little bit with you. So as most of you know, I read an awful lot of adult fiction, a little bit of YA. I certainly read more YA a couple of years ago than I do now, but mostly adult fiction and mostly adult prose. So this year I want to just try and explore some other avenues of reading and other areas that, you know, are of interest to me but maybe I shy away from. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm going to do the Read Harder challenge, and when I do my wrap-ups I'll let you know which books link to which of the challenges. I'll also link the video down below, so if you want to check out what the challenges are in total, then please do so. I think it's a really great fun thing, and I'm really sorry I missed the beginning last year because I'd love to do it. So they're my sort of 2 aims really, is to do the Read Harder and to push myself into non-fiction and a bit more into poetry, because I really like poetry, but it takes up like half a shelf of my 3 bookshelves, rather than the sort of 2 full bookshelves that my adult prose takes up. So just trying to change those 2 things a little bit and have a little bit of variety in what I'm reading. So it's been really interesting so far. So if you have recommendations in those 2 areas, please let me know, because it's a bit of a new world for me. I hope you're all well, and that you've had a really lovely week, and that you haven't had tonsillitis, because it's horrid. And I will see you all very soon in my January wrap up. Alright, bye bye.